Entitled neighbor steals my classic Ford, so I legally demolish her $30,000 driveway. An entitled Karen decides my project car is an eyesore and illegally tows it to a scrapyard. My entitled neighbor Karen thought she could steal and scrap the classic Ford I was restoring just because she deemed it an eyesore. She actually hired a shady tow truck while I was on vacation and smiled as my property was hauled away to be crushed. She thought she had won, but she didn't realize two massive details. The car had a hidden GPS tracker wired directly to the battery, and her brand new $30,000 custom driveway was built entirely on my property line. Here is how I sent her to jail, got my car back, and legally demolished her property in front of her eyes. For a bit of background, I live in a quiet, older neighborhood. There is no homeowners association, which is exactly why I bought the house. A few months ago, I finally started a passion project I had been planning for years: restoring a classic Ford. I bought a rusted but structurally sound frame and engine, parked it in my driveway, and started the long, painstaking process of bringing it back to life. I spent my weekends grinding off rust, ordering vintage parts, and rebuilding the engine block. I kept my workspace clean, never made noise after 8 p.m., and always kept a tarp over the car when I wasn't working on it. Most of my neighbors thought it was cool and would stop by to ask about my progress. Everyone except Karen. Karen lived next door and was the stereotypical neighborhood menace. She had recently spent over $30,000 landscaping her front yard and putting in a massive stamped concrete driveway that wrapped around the side of her house. From day one, she despised my Ford. She would stand at the edge of her property, glaring at me while I worked, loudly complaining into her phone about how the junk next door was ruining her property value. She left aggressive notes on my door, threatened to call the police, and even tried to petition the city to fine me. Every time, she failed, because I was fully within my legal rights. The car was registered, insured as a non-op, and sitting on my private property. Things escalated when I had to leave town for a 4-day business trip. I made sure the Ford was securely covered and locked. On the second day of my trip, I got a notification on my phone. It was an alert from the hidden GPS tracker I had installed deep inside the Ford's dashboard. The alert said the car was moving at 40 miles per hour down the highway. I immediately checked my home security cameras from my phone. The footage made my blood boil. Karen was standing in my driveway, pointing at my car, while a beat-up unmarked tow truck hooked it up. She literally handed the driver a wad of cash, and they drove off with my project car. I didn't panic. I called the local police department and gave them the live GPS coordinates. The car had been taken to an illegal scrap metal yard 2 towns over. The police arrived just as the crane was preparing to lift my Ford into the crusher. The tow truck driver was arrested on the spot. He quickly confessed that Karen had paid him $500 in cash, claiming the car was hers and she wanted it scrapped. When I got back home, my car was safely returned by a police-approved towing service, entirely at Karen's expense. The police visited Karen that same afternoon. I watched from my porch as they slapped handcuffs on her and arrested her for grand theft auto, trespassing, and conspiracy to commit a felony. She was screaming and crying, begging them to let her go, claiming she was just cleaning up the neighborhood. It was incredibly satisfying, but I wasn't done yet, not even close. While dealing with the police reports, I was looking through my home purchasing documents and found the official property survey. I noticed something very interesting about the property line between my house and Karen's. Her massive, expensive new driveway, the one she was so proud of, seemed a little too close to my house. I hired an independent surveyor the next day, ohm out, and mark the exact property line. As it turned out, Karen's contractors had completely ignored the zoning laws. A full 4-foot wide section of her heavy concrete driveway, running the entire length of our properties, was built illegally on my land. I consulted with a real estate lawyer. Because there was no HOA and she had built on my land without permission, I had the legal right to remove the encroachment. I had my lawyer draft a formal letter giving her 30 days to remove the concrete from my property at her own expense, or I would do it myself and sue her for the demolition costs. She ignored the letter, assuming I was bluffing. 31 days later, while Karen was out on bail, waiting for her criminal trial, a massive diesel excavator and a crew of 4 men with jackhammers arrived at my house at 7 a.m. sharp. Karen ran out of her front door in her bathrobe, screaming at the top of her lungs, demanding to know what was happening. I stood on my porch, holding my morning coffee and the property survey. I told her the 30 days were up. The crew started up the jackhammers. The noise was deafening. Karen called the police, but when the officers arrived, the same officers who had arrested her for stealing my Ford, I showed them the legal paperwork, the surveyor's markers, and the ignored certified letter.